You are listening to the On Purpose Podcast, your guide to living a more purposeful life. Honor the Brave was founded by retired law enforcement officer Jeff Wolfgang and his wife Xana after Jeff was injured in the line of duty. It's their way of giving back to the first responder and military community through real estate. If you're a military or first responder, past or present, buying or selling a home, Honor the Brave connects you with trusted realtors nationwide and gives back through their Brave benefits. You receive an amount equivalent to 10% of your agent's commission as a thank you. An additional 5% goes to a charity you choose impacting first responders or military families, and you'll receive a handmade wooden flag honoring your service. Visit honorthebrave.com. We've got your six. What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's edition of the On Purpose Podcast, where it's our pleasure to show up with you each and every week. Get your mind working, get your body moving, get you maybe living life a little more curious. I'm excited this week, especially, right around the 4th of July. This will air, I think, the 11th of July, so we're kind of in a patriotic time. As far as the calendar goes, we're also in a time of turmoil and a lot of political divisiveness and just unsettled time here for the United States. And I thought, what a great timing for this guest, who's an author and entrepreneur, amongst other things, who wrote a book called The Little Book of Big Reasons to Love America. Christian Ray Flores, and his journey is nothing short of extraordinary. He's born in Chile, raised amongst political turmoil, and witnessed firsthand the fall of the Soviet Union, bringing us a global perspective on freedom, resilience, and opportunity. His book is a powerful tribute to the values that make America unique, blending personal experience, historical insights, and cultural reflections to highlight our nation's strengths. Through his work, Christian challenges you to see the bigger picture, appreciate our freedoms that we often take for granted, and cultivate a deeper sense of gratitude for the opportunities available to us. So this week I'm excited to sit down with Christian and learn more about his perspective, learn more about his views on what's going on and how he recommends we handle it. How, from his view, we're still lucky to be alive today and here. So before we get to this conversation, please do me a favor, get over, like, subscribe, share this podcast wherever you're consuming. If you've already done that, thank you so much. If you haven't, just take a moment and help us win the battle of the algorithms to get out and reach more people around the world to fulfill our mission, which is to be one of the most impactful podcasts in the world. That means we're a podcast that creates momentum and ripples and gets people living life with more purpose. So do that and then sit back and enjoy this week's conversation with Christian Ray Flores. Christian, my newest friend, welcome to the On Purpose Podcast. How are you today?
Thanks for having me, Jerrod. I'm good, man. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Excited for the talk.
I want to thank you for sharing your story, man. I want to thank you for doing what you're doing and putting that story out in the world. I think too many times we don't find value in our own story, or we compare it to everybody else's and we keep it to ourselves, but nobody can learn from a story unless it's told.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it took me, I don't know, a decade to even write what I knew should be written. So, it takes me a while.
Yeah, but I think that's good, right? Like, I think sometimes we're in too big a hurry to move on from things, and we don't let that masterpiece marinate a little bit and really gain the perspective that comes with getting past a moment and looking back to it.
Yeah, I think for me, it was not even a masterpiece. I think it was just what you said first, is that I I didn't think it was valuable enough, right? So you sort of have it in you, I think every single person has a book at least one book in them, right? But then people tell you, hey, you should write it down. You should write it down. You should write it down. You go, no. I mean, who's going to read that? And it's a lot of work, that kind of thing. So
Right.
eventually, sort of there's a critical mass where you go, yeah, I should write it down.
All right, before we jump into your story, Christian, I like to have a warm-up for you. I like to think of this as like a mental warm-up to get the mind and body ready to go. You ready for your warm-up?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, here we go. You get to have one word to describe you. What word do you choose?
Refugee.
Oh, well, that ties in good to your story, huh?
It does, yeah. Yeah, what? Do you want me to unpack that or?
Yeah, tell me why that comes to mind.
Actually, if because I had one word, I said refugee. I would say leader of refugees.
Mm.
If I had more, like three words. And the reason for that is, I went through this exercise just recently. I don't remember where I heard it, but somebody said, "Look, what are some of the things that you've like a shadow word that you would use about your life? Something that's not a fond memory, right?"
Mm.
And and I was like, I think refugee is the word. And then he said, find a way to frame it so that you can be, so that it actually feeds into the edge that you have in this world, how you can be of service to other people. And that really helped me because I thought, you know what? I've never liked big institutions because of that sort of origin story of being a refugee at age 5. And it's sort of, I never thought of it that way, that I've always advocated for essentially a rebellion against autocracy, against sort of anything that's hyper hierarchical, oppressive, and removes your freedom.
Mm.
Every single, even career path, I had that thing on in me,
Mm-hmm.
and I never noticed that that's a pattern, right? So I'm like, you know what? I think this is how I reframe it. I'm a leader of refugees. I'm a leader of people who want to get out of the machine, get out of the matrix, and that's my bent, right? So I think it's something was there instilled in me that it helps me now, right? For example, I do coaching right now. I do personal brand coaching for people who want to be known for something. And people have asked me so many times, why don't you do corporate coaching? Because that's where the money is.
Right.
Like corporations have money, they send their people to coaches to do the stuff. And I never ever wanted to do that. And the reason because I just don't like big corporations just as an environment for me. It might be great for some people. It's not good for me. Like I would run away from a corporation if I was in a situation like that, right? Because too much bureaucracy, too much hierarchy, too much rigidity. And so even in my professional expression, I shy away from the thing
Mm.
that sort of communicates to me, this could be oppressive. You know what I'm saying? So anyway,
Yeah.
it's too long of an answer. I'm sorry, but you asked the question, right?
Yeah, man.
What's the word?
Yeah, I love it. All right, what's a favorite quote that kind of sticks with you throughout life?
I have a few. I mean, okay, so two. Can I do two?
For sure.
Okay, so Mother Teresa. There are no great things. There's only little things done with great love. I'm probably butchering it a little bit, but sort of the essence of it. That's one. And then James Clear. Um, and I'm butchering both of them. Oh my gosh, I have terrible memory for like word for word. Basically, James Clear is, um, you will not raise to the level of your aspirations. You will fall to the level of your habits.
Right.
So those two things. And now that I say it, I go, oh my gosh, I think they're saying the same thing.
Mm. Very similar.
If you think about it, right?
Yeah. All right, Christian, your life has a theme song. What would your song be?
Theme song. Oh my gosh. I would say Our Generation.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the theme song.
Nice. What brings that? What memory comes up with that?
Well, I'm cheating a little bit because basically Our Generation was the name of one of my biggest hits in my previous career as an artist. And it, and the chorus went, we are our generation, we're a sign of liberation. And it was basically the song that Boris Yeltsin used in his presidential campaign against the communists. And the song was all about freedom. So, and they literally used that song as the anthem for the presidential campaign. So I'm cheating a little bit because I sort of know what the theme song is.
I love
But
it.
in a broader sense, it actually feeds into the lifestyle, the stuff that I do, how I do it, right?
Hmm.
So it's really a sign of liberation kind of stuff.
Love it. What's a favorite book or a book you're currently reading? You can answer either way.
Okay, so book that I'm reading. I'm reading The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. And again, I might be butchering the title. It's either The Creative Act or The Creative Lifestyle or something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
The producer, the epic music producer, Rick Rubin, right?
Sure.
I love his stuff. Yeah.
Okay. One last question, Christian. You get to have dinner with one person. They could have passed on or still be with us. Who would you have dinner with, and what would you want to ask them?
I would have dinner with the Apostle Paul and ask him, how did you how did you even imagine the life that you led after being a complete enemy of Jesus to becoming the apostle who wrote half the New Testament, and how you start a movement like that from nothing?
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting. That's got a lot of layers to it, right? Because it's also like one of the things that comes to mind hearing that is that he had to kind of move past who he had been to create who was new.
Yeah, yeah, huge. I mean, it's crazy. The story is amazing.
Right. And so many people in today's society are so beholden to who they've been, they refuse to grow or change into anything new.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting conversation. All right, you feeling warmed up, Christian?
I am, man.
Yeah,
Let's
all
go.
right. All right, so talk to me. I want to kick off first. The title of your book, Little Book of Big Reasons to Love America. I want to talk to you about where did that come from and what made you decide to write that?
So the title actually, I stole the title, sort of creatively stole. Um, when I was, again, you know what? It's so cool, the theme, right? Um, this was maybe 20, maybe 18 years ago. My children, my two youngest daughters were in school. I did not like how their education situation was going. Um, and then my wife brought me this little booklet, and it's a little, I mean, I could read it probably in a couple hours max. It was called The Little Book of Big Reasons to Homeschool.
Mm.
And I read that book, and we decided to homeschool our two youngest daughters. And we homeschooled all the way through high school, and it's one of my best decisions ever, right? So put a pin on that. And how the book happened itself is that I was a fan of America my whole life, right? And I grew up overseas, Latin America, Africa, Western Europe, Eastern Europe. And I sort of was attuned to the frequency. So um, I was sort of a student of the American culture, the American way, etc. And then I married an American. Then I moved to America. I was 35 years old. And when I moved to America, I I noticed things that most American take for granted, and I was
Mm.
excited about it. And I would point it, and it's not just things that are sort of on the surface, right? Wow, there's people here have, let's say, more safety, more freedom, more abundance, etc. No, it was a lot more nuanced than that, right? Infrastructure, culture, faith, charity, things like that, right? And I would say that, of course, the person who hears me the most is my wife. So my wife, Deb, would go, "You keep saying those things, right? And you should write it down somewhere because I think people don't have that perspective." So she'd said that for a long time. And then eventually, we were going on a walk here near our house. We have these beautiful trails. And she said, it was election year, the last election cycle. So the one where, we're electing a president, etc. And things got real ugly, right? Really, really ugly. And Deb was like, and it was not the election yet, but it was pre-election, like it was sort of ongoing, slow rolling. It wasn't near because the book came out before the election, actually, before the results. And so in the beginning of the year, she was like, that thing that you tell me about America, you're so excited about it. You should write this down. I mean, look at this ugliness.
Mm.
And basically, that's how I ended up writing a book. It was 10 chapters, 10 Reasons to Love America. And then I creatively stole the title from the homeschooling book and that's kind of a nice title to it. Little Book of Big Reasons to Love America. It's so simple. It communicates that it's short. You can read it in about 3 hours. And then I added my creative layers to it. So I added colored illustrations, AI illustrations, archival pictures, QR codes to videos, and quotes from, like, every chapter has quotes from notable figures who speak about the thing of
Hmm.
that chapter. So I sort of added some layers to it later, but that's how it came about.
So, talk to me about your childhood and just your earlier life, going through political upheaval in Chile to seeing the collapse of the Soviet Union. How did that shape your perspective?
Well, I saw a lot. I think I just saw so much oppression, right? In I saw oppression in, like, literally three continents, slightly different, even brands of oppression, but the results were all, terrible. So I was 5 years old. We moved to Chile from Russia. My mom is Russian. We moved when I was a baby. So I was 5 years old when there was a coup in Chile, and tens of thousands of people got arrested. They overthrew the government, and they put people in concentration camps. My dad was in one. They put people in these big like soccer stadiums, because they ran out of space. So they would put them in soccer stadiums. The soccer stadiums are large. They can put a lot of people there, right? And they would literally torture, kill a bunch of people. A lot of people disappeared without trace to this day, that we
Mm.
don't know where they are. So it's a famous story. It was a big, big, big thing. We were smack in the middle of it. My parents were Marxist, so they were supporting the president that was overthrown. The president that was overthrown was a socialist. So it's an interesting sort of dilemma that sort of comes full circle later when I campaigned against the communists as a big pop star in Russia. But at the time, I was 5 years old. My first memory was standing outside of that concentration camp that my dad was held in, and my mom was trying to pass food through the guards to him, which never made it to him, by the way. And I remember just being scared. We ended up being in a refugee facility for a few months, and with a bunch of families under the protection of the United Nations. And then we got asylum in Germany, so we were basically refugees, like Munich. We got off the plane. The Germans were very, very hospitable, actually.
Mm.
Incredible, just incredible. They took care of us, and I mean, like, the mayor was at the airport meeting us. It was amazing. So eventually we made it back to the Soviet Union because mom was so shell shocked. She wanted to go back home. It was worse. We ended up in a communal apartment, and like when you share like a hallway and a kitchen and a bathroom with another family, it was horrible, right? Like,
Right.
gr- you know, terrible, terrible. It's cold. Everything sucks, basically, right? So like, I have such bad memories of that, like trauma. I was sick all the time, almost died there. I had pneumonia back to back to back,
Mm.
bronchitis, pneumonia. So I was in the hospital a lot. And then my dad gets a job in Africa, in Mozambique. So Mozambique just got its independence from the Portuguese, sort of that whole wave of independence
Hmm.
movements in Africa in the 60s and 70s. And we end up in Mozambique. Mozambique, as I'm 7 years old. This is literally my fourth country, my third continent, and I'm 7 years old.
Wow.
Like, completely different languages, So, like, you talk about massive changes, like back to back to back. And then a year after we landed there was a civil war that started there. It was mostly up north, but we got bombings, we got all kinds of things, food shortages. We had ration cards for some stuff,
Mm.
and so it was just a very strange existence. But it was a very happy, actually, childhood, because there was so much freedom there. Like, as a child, it was amazing, right? So we ended up doing that and went back to the Soviet Union when I was now a teenager, after my parents divorced, and I was back in the sort of the land of mediocrity, right?
Mm.
Entrepreneurship is illegal,
Okay.
censorship is absolute. We lived in a one-bedroom apartment. I slept in the kitchen. We were not hungry ever, but everybody was poor. So we were middle class in the sense that everybody's poor.
Yeah.
And that's it. No car, no restaurants, you know, not hungry,
Yeah.
but that's why I say it's a land of mediocrity. You exchange freedom for mediocrity.
Mm.
And I saw the whole thing collapse, basically, and uh, I graduated from university in 91, master's in economics, and the whole thing collapses. you know. And I basically all of my friends go to banking and trade and everything, and I went into music. Like I was the one idiot who chose chose something that has almost zero success rates, right? So, but I was very lucky and successful. And I was good, right?
Yeah.
And I became basically one of the top pop stars in all of that territory of 15 different countries, and basically the rest is history.
When did it come to your attention that if you go to America, you have a chance at a completely different life?
Well, well, I always knew that. I never even hoped to go in America when I was a kid, right? My first glimpses were I mean, think about this. This is one of the poorest countries in the world, Mozambique, at the time, 70s. There's no television. Like 3 years in, my dad builds this big tower. We get the signal from South African television, and they show these American shows.
Mm.
And we were in a country where, and we were in a privileged position where expats, right, still pretty basic. Like for us, it wouldn't be for Americans now. It's nothing what we made, but more than 70% of the population makes lives on under $2 a day in that country, and still today,
Right.
like let that sink in.
Hmm.
So we're in that place, and I see shows where people go on cruises and the high rises in New York and the beautiful American cars, and it's like it just seems like a different planet basically, right?
Right.
At the time. But then eventually, obviously, I became famous. I got a fame and fortune. I traveled to America quite a bit. So I became very acquainted with it. I didn't really want to move because now I have a brand in like all of that territory, right? Like if I go to America, I need to start over. Nobody cares who I am there, you know?
Right.
So, so we would go back and forth to visit my wife's parents and stuff like that, right? So she's American. She's from Wisconsin. Uh, and um, and so I didn't really I admired the culture, and I almost like subscribed to the signal, right? To the signal of freedom. Even in everywhere I went, I had that sort of rebellious streak, right?
Yeah.
Entrepreneurial streak, creative streak, all of those things. But I really didn't want to move to America because I had sort of made it in somewhere else, right? Um, so going to America was not an aspiration for me. It was just an inspiration more than an aspiration.
Mm.
And we ended up moving to America only because my wife, who has some autoimmune issues, was getting sicker and sicker with the climate.
And where was that at? The climate in Russia?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. The climate sucks in Russia. It's terrible. It's
What you
very cold. There's no sun, you know.
did you ever share these ideas with your mom? How receptive was she to you coming to America?
She was fine with it. Well, she was sad because I was leaving. But my sister had already gone to
Okay.
America. She already lived there, so she was sort of okay, I guess so, you know. Then she sort of went back and forth. She would go back and forth. She's an American citizen now. She goes back and forth and back and forth, still. But yeah, so she was fine with it.
And one of the themes in your book is the power of gratitude, right? Being grateful for the opportunities we have and
Hmm.
kind of reminding yourself that even our problems are better than a lot of places in the world.
Oh yeah, yeah.
How did you develop that mindset to be grateful for your challenges and how would you say that more of us can do that with intention, be more purposeful to looking for the gratitude piece?
It's actually one of the things that when I coach people in is that it's sort of in the morning routine. It's very simple. You can just have a journal, a piece of paper,
Mhm.
and you can say, hey, just write down 5 things every day that you're grateful for. Like in the immediate sort of vicinity of last week, for example, right?
Mhm.
Just small things, notice. Or people. And you can vary it, right? So it doesn't get old. It could be people, it could be long term, it could be short term, it could be present, it could be even gratitude for the future,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. But our because our brain bends towards the negative because it's sort of primed to help us survive, not thrive.
Yep.
Uh, Doing something like that intentionally really, really helps, right? But I think so. There's definitely ways to nurture that quality in you. The other thing is being in environments that have that kind of cultural trait, right? So a community, a church, a coaching group, whatever, right? Where people are like that. So you become sort of the average of the closest five people that you're around all the
Yeah.
time. So you put yourself in a situation where people are generally grateful, you'll become more grateful. Like if you put yourself in a situation where most of the people around you complain, you're going to complain more. So it's just not complicated. But I would say for me, there was definitely a added layer of optimism and gratitude throughout. And to me, I don't know why that
Mm.
happened, but it was there. So it's a mystery to me, honestly. When it comes to like a baseline, I think
Hmm.
everybody has a baseline, and I've talked to some of the top researchers on, for example, joy and happiness. And basically, what research shows is that about 50% of it's genetic, not just genetic naturally, but nurturing. Like, for example, if your parents were a bit negative and sort of not present and not joyful, you probably have a lower baseline.
Mm.
But it's just 50%, which means you can double your joy just by practicing certain things and being around the right people and learning certain skills, right? So to me, I am definitely my baseline was high.
Mm.
Uh,
How
y-
did you
you know,
handle that? How did you manage to keep that baseline high when you're seeing what you're seeing, when you got the
I
upheaval, you're
know.
moving in
Yeah.
and out? Because
It's crazy, right? Yeah,
right.
yeah. I get that all the time. But I mean, people like look at me and go, How are you not bitter?" Basically, right?
Sure.
Like, and I honestly don't know. I can't really like. I wish I have theories,
Hmm.
but I don't have an answer. I think it's a mystery, and my theory is that you can reframe something negative in what how it who it made you, right? So I'll give you maybe two or three examples, right? So one is this. I'll give you three specific examples how I reframed it. But my point is, well, how do you get there to reframe it? I don't know. But so one is this. Um, if you went through some rough times and there's a pattern of that, and you're okay after that, you can say, I have more strength than most people realize. I know I have more strength. Most people think they may have strength. I know I have more strength and resilience because I've actually experienced that, and most people have not. Which basically means um, I'm unafraid of suffering.
Mm.
And anything good in life, if you're an entrepreneur, if you want to get in shape, if you want to build a good relationship or learn something new, that is all suffering. Like you
Yeah.
can't not suffer and get there. So if you're unafraid of suffering, you'll probably try more things and actually do better, right? Long
Yep.
term. So that's one thing. That's one way to reframe it. The other one is um, this was actually a recent realization. 'Cause I practice a lot of sort of contemplation,
Hmm.
right? Because you need to understand yourself. Is that because I was a foreigner, I was an outsider everywhere I've been, like literally everywhere. I literally don't belong anywhere because of all those things, right? So in Chile, I look Chilean, I blend in real well visually, but then I start talking and I speak Spanish, but my jargon is not there. It's slightly different, right? I'm fluent, but it's not. They know that I've spent time in other places, right?
Right.
And I have a Chilean accent and everything, but it's the vocabulary that is different. The If I go to Africa, they call me white. If I go to Russia, they call me colored, right, or whatever, brown. I just never fit in. If I'm in America, you talk to me for 5 minutes, you detect an accent, you detect some things, right? And people go like, "So where are you from exactly?" Right? So,
Mm.
and it's not all bad; it just is. So that our primal desire to fit in, I was sort of divorced from that illusion since the beginning. I couldn't fit in.
Mm.
So what do you do when you what do you do when you can't fit in even if you want to? Well, then you stand out. And if you think about it, every success in every area, in every industry, is about actually not blending in. It's about standing out.
Mm.
It's about finding that edge, what makes you different, what makes you better, what makes you competitive, what makes you solve a problem a particular way. So emotionally speaking, I'm primed for that, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't mind at all standing out. I've never blended in anyway, so
Yeah.
makes me more creative basically. So I
And
can go on and on, but my point is you can find things like that to reframe it, and then turn it into some sort of superpower or strength.
I love it. The first part of what I heard there that just came to mind, because you said you suffered, right? And you weren't afraid of suffering because you'd experienced it and you knew like you could power through it. The first thing that comes to mind there is you're being tested, right? Like you said, some people think we're strong. Some people think we're fast. People think I would do this in that situation.
Yeah.
But until you're tested, you really don't know.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? You were tested, so you knew you were practicing resilience because you're being tested by life.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, we're taking massive risks, all kinds of risks throughout my life, right?
And here's what I love about that. When we're tested, we build confidence.
Yeah.
When you're afraid of the test, when you avoid the test at all costs, when you steer clear of it, oh my God, I might fail, I'm not going to even do it, you will never get the confidence that's on the other side, whether you're successful or not. But you got to get involved in the doing of it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no shortcut at all. Oh, here's the third one, because we crave something predictable, something structured, that I want to know that the sky's not going to fall tomorrow, right? That things are going to be stable. It's very, very human, well, if you go from being in a military coup, a civil war, and then the collapse literally of a whole empire right before your eyes, the illusion of stability goes away, So,
Yeah.
and the upside of that is, well, if nothing is certain, then everything is possible. And I literally, that's how I thought. I'm like, why would I go do banking? It's so predictable. I'm gonna go do music. It's super high risk, probably gonna fail, but everything is possible,
Yeah.
basically, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of a reframe as well.
Yeah, it's so funny listening to you, Christian, because you're talking and you're sharing your stories. I'm hearing all this goes back to your word, which is leader of refugee. Right?
Yeah,
Think about it, you didn't belong anywhere, so you relieved yourself of the pressure of fitting in and just
Yeah.
accepted that I'm going to stand out no matter where I go, so I'm going to stand out on my terms.
Exactly. And then naturally, like now I mean, I've changed 5 different careers. Now I do personal brand coaching, which is literally helping people, first of all, believe that they can stand out, that they should stand out, actually.
Yeah.
And then tell them how to stand out and how not to be afraid of it. And then obviously there's a lot of strategy and tactics there. But my point is, it's really helping someone going, screw this,
Yes.
right? Like, why am I a cog in a machine?
Love it.
I'm more than this, basically. So it's it's a very rebellious kind of service. Like, I'm a
Yeah.
leader of refugees, so.
No, but I look at what you're doing. That's exactly your stories revolve around this. And I think one of the craziest things, and here's what I love about just life and sharing stories, right, is you found the power in your stories at a young age. You found the power in going, wait, I don't have to be, I'm not like everybody else. So I'm not even going to pretend to be like everybody else. I'm going to go 100% into who I want to be. And I think, Christian, unfortunately, a lot of people don't find that realization or go that deep into their own psyche, their own emotions until they're near death, right? And they're at the end of their life and like, wait a second. I spent so much of my life fitting in, doing shit I didn't want to do, being unhappy because everybody expected me to do this, that I'm leaving a lot of my gifts are going to get buried with me. I didn't share them.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And it's crazy. And to me, that's part of the reason I have a passion about this is that I live, you and I live in the most free, prosperous country in the history of humanity.
Yes.
And in the country that you're not told what to do, that no one's going to come and arrest you in the middle of the night. The censorship is very low, thank you, and hopefully they'll keep it that way. That you will not be punished for initiative and entrepreneurship. Way too many people are settling for the status quo. Seriously, where do you live? You live in America,
Yeah.
Stop settling. Find the gifts that you have in you, and go serve the world. I mean, it's literally the best place on earth to do that. So.
I think you hit on something that's so key there, right? And that is sometimes we feel like if we follow our gifts, we're being selfish. But the reality is you serve people by sharing your gifts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, at a higher level. I mean, people want that in you, but we just don't believe. And gifts are so familiar to us, they don't feel valuable. That's basically one of the big obstacles that people have.
Well, we get caught up in comparing, right? Like, oh, I can't sing as good as Christian, or I don't have this as good as Christian, so I won't even do my thing because Christian's so good at it over here. But
Hmm.
yet, what my unique talent is, somebody's waiting for it. Somebody's waiting to hear the unique view I have.
Exactly. Yeah. There are thousands of people out there
Everybody.
who want exactly what you have to offer. If you have just the courage to
Mm.
even yourself acknowledge, here's the way I can solve a problem,
Yeah.
and then publish it and share it with the world so people can find you.
Yeah. So let me ask this though, Christian. So when we're recording right now, we got riots in LA, we got some big upheaval about the political climate, president, not president, all that. How do you continue to share your view of the strength of America, even though we're going to be flawed, right? Every country is flawed, every human's flawed.
Hmm.
How do we get people to not focus on so much of everything that's different, but come back to like, wait a second, we're grateful we can have opposing views, we can have opposing opinions, we can vote, and even 50-50, half people like the president, half don't like him in every election for most of the last decade at least.
Yeah.
But there's space for all of us.
Yeah.
So what would you say to those people that are like, no, look at this, this is crazy, that's crazy, America's falling apart?
Well, I mean, here's what I would say. Are people coming in the middle of the night to arrest you for your views? No. Are people putting you in jail for something you posted on Facebook? No. There's a risk of that, that we need to avoid, but
Yes.
no. Do you not have work?
Mm.
I think the unemployment rate in America right now, it's somewhere between 4 and 6%.
And that's usually like we get to 6, that's like record highs.
Yeah, yeah. Which basically means that 94 out of 100 people can eat and have a roof over their head if they want to.
Mm. Yeah.
You know how insane that is? Like just do a quick Google search on the unemployment rates in other places,
Right.
including sort of some of the prosperous places, right?
Right.
Um, the whole idea of ideological brainwashing, when it comes to things that are just not true,
Mm-hmm.
right? We are definitely at risk of getting more of that, but we're definitely the least infected culture in the civilized world for sure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can go on and on and on.
Yeah. Well, we're at risk, Christian, when we don't think for ourselves. When I
Yeah,
automatically just assume whatever scrolls up on social media or the news media, I just assume everybody else is telling me the truth, and I don't go, wait a second, let me talk to Christian about this. Let me see why he
yeah,
thinks this. Let me listen to Christian and see what his views on this are. The other thing that always strikes me, Christian, is when sometimes we have too much information, right? And I can sit and go, oh my God, look at that terrible thing that happened way over there. And that's happening in my neighborhood. And then in my house, I start making up these mental stories that the world's falling apart. And look at this way over there. But if I go out of my door
hmm
and I talk to Christian, I'm like, wow, he was pretty nice. He's a good guy. And I talk to this
yeah,
next guy, I'm like, wow, he's a pretty good guy. Well, she's a great lady. Wow, look at that. She just did something nice for a stranger. Sometimes we get sold this narrative that does not match the world any of us live in.
exactly, yeah. And I think some of those ideologies are imported from the places I grew up in, and that's sort of one
Mm-hmm.
of the things um, that I mentioned in the chapter. That the only negative thing is a little bit of a warning at the end of each chapter
Love it.
about, okay, this is very valuable, this is not normal, and you can lose it in like one
Mm-hmm.
generation, basically, right? But to I think what you said is actually super 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 important. Yes, people always, it's very deeply human for us to categorize other people according to like two or three characteristics,
Yep.
right? Just put them in one bucket. I think that's just like a brain, actually like a neural brain function. Your brain is trying to conserve energy, so you look at somebody, in the mall, and just by half a second that you will put them in a bucket.
Mm.
Rich, poor, educated, not educated, this and that, whatever.
Yep.
Like you'll because you're trying to label everything. You're trying to make sense of your environment. So that's very primal. That's universal. It's everywhere. Always will be, etc. That's fine, right? If you're an evolved, mature individual, you'll realize that it's just a label. It means nothing, right?
Yep.
But on top of that, there are ideologies that actually enhance that and make it into literally the new normal.
Mm.
So the Marxist ideology is basically something that mutates into new environments to create more of that, like 10 times 1,000. And that's what caused a lot of the division, I think, right? So Karl Marx basically was, writing in London, and he was like, okay, there's a lot of people from the farms moving to factories. The Industrial Revolution started there. It was massive shifts in life. Like everything changes. It's almost like what's going to happen now with AI,
Yep.
right? Very similar, I think. And he was looking at that stuff and going, oh my gosh, all these people are getting super rich because they own factories. All these farmers are living in terrible conditions. Okay, so here's how we solve the problem. He basically said, okay, the world is oppressors and the oppressed.
Mm-hmm.
So the world became binary. And then the solution, which is sort of a self-evident thing, meaning, yeah, some people were rich and some people were poor, and the poor were not in good conditions. And then he was like, okay, so here's how we solve it. First of all, God doesn't exist, right? So that's not going to be part of the solution. So you can't solve that from the inside out. Like, for example, a factory owner would become more humane, invest in their workers, educate their children, give them better conditions. Like none of that was on the table
Right.
for him, you know? And then, and here's the funny part. Like it's a little nuance, but it matters. So Charles Dickens wrote The Christmas Carol around the same time about the same things in the same place in London. His answer was that Scrooge, right? Was it Scrooge, the negative guy?
Yeah.
He was changed from the inside out. So his solution is that you can be redeemed and changed and transformed and become a better person. Karl Marx was like, no, you can't become a better person. All of them are evil. We're going to kill them all. We're going to take their stuff and we're going to distribute them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, who's going to distribute everything? The government.
Right.
That's it. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Right? So then you take that ideology because it's so basic. It's so basic, and it usually starts with saying, "Can't you see the problem?" And people go, "Yeah, we see the problem." Okay, here's the solution.
Yeah.
There's the oppressed, there's the oppressor. We're gonna crush the oppressor, and we're gonna help the oppressed. Who's gonna crush the oppressor and help the oppressed? That benevolent savior,
Yep.
the enlightened person who is basically is the state.
Yep.
Makes the state into a god. You worship the state, and then you can transplant that into, okay, who's the oppressed? Latinos. Who's the oppressor? The white people. And you literally rinse and repeat. Male, female, color of the skin, geography, whatever. And you can transplant, rinse and repeat, and then infuse that into the education system. And that's going to cause violence.
Yeah.
Cause violence. And but Americans, I think part of the reason is Americans don't see the root of that. And I grew up in that. I wrote papers on Karl Marx.
Yeah.
So when something like that pops up in like Teen Vogue, for example, something like that, right?
Yeah.
I was like, what on earth are you talking about? What tree did you fall from?
Right.
And so I see it, but the average American doesn't know the root of it because they didn't grow up in it.
Right.
So I'm like, this is evil. This is actually evil, And when mainstream politicians start basically saying socialism, like I'm like, my brain explodes.
Right.
And so does the brain of I promise you, every immigrant from any ex-Soviet, ex-socialist bloc, all of our brains are exploding when we see that. And we go, what is wrong with you people?
Right.
you
So,
know, basically.
yeah, no, 100%. I agree. 100%. Is that one of the messages you hope to get across to people by reading your book? Is like just start like looking at things and
Yeah, yeah,
sharing that perspective?
yeah. So it's a very optimistic book about America, but it's a very sort of, I would say, it's easy reading, but it's very, it goes deep into the causes, right?
Mm,
Of oppression, of the mindset and the ideology and how it affects people.
yeah. Yeah, I want to shift gears with you, Christian. You said something earlier that I think is super important, and it's been something that I've been giving a lot of thought to, and that is you said you're a contemplative person. Like you give yourself time to really think about things.
Yeah,
How do you're a busy guy too, right? Like you're doing a
yeah.
lot of things. So how do you create time in your day to allow yourself to just be, to think, to dive deeper into whatever's on your mind?
You sort of have to make it happen, basically. And I think the way you make it happen is you understand why it's important
Mm,
first, right? Because new habits don't form just randomly. We're too busy to create new habits. So if you want to lose weight, you need to understand at some point there's a deep emotional shift where you go, this can't go. I can't do this. This is going to
mm,
cost me. This is going to cost me on so many levels. I'm gonna hit the gym. I'm gonna do this, whatever, right? So it's sort of the same thing. Is what is it costing you now? The question is the fact that you can be stressed out, anxious, and essentially always underwater a little bit emotionally.
yeah.
What is it costing you right now? How long have you been in that?
Mm,
A year, 2 years, a decade? What kind of loss of opportunity, of health, of relationships, of joy, of even career, creativity opportunities are not there because you're in that state
mm.
of survival? You're in survival mode. So those are the questions I think that trigger that, right? So if you think about it and you go, yeah, I can't really create a new future if I'm in survival mode. There's no way, right? You can't even imagine it.
Yeah.
Your mind is so limited, right? You're so pessimistic. You're just barely keeping on, right? And I'm telling you, the most brilliant leaders, CEOs, founders, doctors, lawyers, people that are brilliant people, so many of them that's their normal.
Mm.
And imagine that, and imagine this: how much of a loss is that for the world of this level of talent and brilliance not achieving their potential? You know.
Yeah.
So that's the big question, I think, right? And then how to do it is actually secondary because you'll make it happen once you're convinced, right? So, you know, and I have like I teach the stuff, right? And
Yeah.
basically, look, how you start your morning, it's how you spend your day. And how you start the morning, I do basically three things. I go, look, I need you to contemplate, so pray, meditate, journal, be still, be in touch with how you're feeling, why are you feeling this way. So it's called metacognition, right? Metacognition is thinking about your thinking, being able to self-regulate, all of those things. Then you move your body because you're a biological physical being and your brain and your body are interconnected 100%. So you're not wired to sit in front of a monitor for 8 hours a day.
Right.
Like you're you know so you move your body. So you lift weights, you walk, you run, whatever, right? And then the third thing you do, and this is every morning, is you learn a new skill.
Mm.
You spend 20, 30 minutes. What is the lowest hanging fruit? What's the thing that keeps you from taking the next step, right? What is that skill? It could be everything. It could be public speaking. It could be sales. It could be marriage. It could be parenting. It could be marketing, right? Pick a lane and then move a little bit towards that goal every single day, even if it's half an hour to an hour.
Yep.
I mean, there's all kinds of evidence, the fact that if you do something consistently, you don't have the skill in the beginning, you do an hour a day for 100 days, you're going to be basically in the top 25% in that skill just because you didn't dabble. You
Right.
just kept, it's consistency. That's all it is, right?
Yeah.
So there's an art to it, there's a science to it, but essentially that's the thing that I do personally. I coach people in that 3 things every morning, and it becomes a new habit and changes your life basically.
And we're blessed that we can create new lives for ourselves by being here in the United States.
Right? Seriously. Like it's like for most of history, you were born a peasant, you die a peasant.
Mm-hmm.
You're born whatever in the military, you die in the military. I mean, it's all bucket. I mean, for literally thousands of years.
Yep.
And then 200 years ago, Industrial Revolution, you can maybe change your family trajectory in one generation. Like you go a farmer, you are a poor farmer. You go to that London that Karl Marx wrote about. By the way, they went there voluntarily. No one made them
Mm-hmm.
because it was better than when they were where they were.
Right.
You go there, you work at a factory. Maybe your kid can go to a school, get an education. In one generation, you upgrade your family's fortunes. Then it accelerates, right? Maybe in a few years with the information revolution, especially, right?
Mm.
And now with AI, forget about it, man.
Christian, go ahead.
A few months. That's it.
Man, well,
It's crazy.
I'll be honest, I was skeptical at first, but it helps me a great deal in my business. So I'm a big believer in utilizing it under
Yeah.
scopes. However, I have no idea where it ends up. I don't know where the story goes.
I know, me neither. No one knows, I think.
You're right. Christian, it's been awesome having you on the show, my friend. Your book, The Little Book of Big Reasons to Love America, where can our audience get it? Where can they join your community to follow along with all the things you have going on?
You can just go to Amazon and put in my name, Christian Ray Flores, or the long title, Little Book of Big Reasons to Love America, either or, or you can go to, and if you want to just sort of stay in touch, christianrayflores.com is my newsletter. And basically I write all things about personal branding and all kinds of really cool insights there. Put a lot of effort in it. We have like 12,000 subscribers as of today.
Okay.
And it's a really good resource, so I highly recommend it.
Awesome. Christian, thanks so much, my friend. It's been a pleasure getting to share your story with our community.
Thanks for having me, Jerrod.
And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.